Not from the beginning, sorry. I forgot it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So inshallah we will continue with the 10th word, but a super quick recap of what 10th word is. It starts at page 59 in the hard copies that we have here. It's about resurrection and the hereafter. It's interpretation of multiple verses from Quran, but especially the starting verse that we had at the very beginning was فانظر إلى آثار رحمة الله كيف يحيي الأرض بعد موتها إن ذلك لمحيي الموتى وهو على كل شيء قدير. Look then to the signs of God's mercy, how He restores life to the earth after its death. Verily He it is who quickens the dead, who resurrects the dead, for He is powerful over all things. And in this 10th word, Imam Nursi is making an interpretation. It consists of two parts. The first part is more story-like, and in a story-like fashion, like two brothers or two friends coming to a country, a palace, and one of them says, "No, there's no afterlife, no nothing. Nobody is protecting the property here. I'll just use it as I wish." But the other person, the more sound-minded one, says, "How come it can have no owners? You would be responsible, held accountable," so on and so forth. So there's this conversation that has been happening between them. And in the first part of the 10th word, there's this metaphorical language that is being used. And there would be 12 aspects that would be investigated. And in the second part, which will start after page 70, inshallah, we will start talking about the truth of those aspects. But we are not there yet. So still we are studying the aspects. So far we have studied 8 aspects, and today, inshallah, we will study 9th aspect, right? Yes. Anything you would like to add from the previous week?
Oh, maybe just one short addition would be the 10th word is about hereafter in general, akhirah. And the author is, through this story that we are studying, this parable, he is studying what we see in our life. So he talks about the trees, he talks about birds, he talks about what happened to your body, your memory, your feelings, and so on and so forth, and using these as evidence for the existence of hereafter. So he's not saying that, oh, hereafter exists because we are Muslims, Quran says so we have to believe. Rather, he says, if you study your life, if you study what you see around, you will realize that all of these things tells you about hereafter. And then Quran says in the 8th aspect that we studied last week, author said, okay, everything around you tells you about hereafter. Also, Quran says there is hereafter. Or a degree of this monarch. In the example, there's a king, right? The king also says that I will keep you accountable. There will be a time that I will destroy everything and then recreate them, reconstruct them in the example. And then you will be kept accountable. So the author's approach is that there's always one-to-one match between your life and what revelation tells you. It doesn't start from revelation. The belief starts from your life, your existence, and then revelation confirms what you see and then explains it. It's not the other way around. It's not like, oh, I'm a Muslim, whatever Quran says, whatever revelation says must be true, hence I take it as granted and then try to change my life accordingly. This is not the way. At least it's not the approach that the author is following, as far as I understand. Rather, author says, when you take your life seriously, when you study it, you will realize that there are certain things like signs of hereafter, and then revelation comes and fits to what you experience, and then explains it, and you say that, okay, this revelation must be true. Okay, it starts from existence, not from the revelation in that sense.
And in general, author's approach is not to imitate, to investigate. Even when you hear revelation saying something to you, you do not simply accept it imitatively, but you explore it and confirm it. Because at the basis of Iman is Shahada, so you bear witness to it. You do not simply accept it just because. So this is the main approach the author is taking. He started with a verse, but the verse is inviting us to look at the signs in the creation. So Quran is not speaking, saying that I say so, so you must accept it as it is, but rather look at the signs. If we reread the verse again, look then to the signs of God's mercy, how he restores life to the earth after its death. Verily he it is who resurrects the dead, quickens means resurrects, who resurrects the dead, for he is powerful over all things. So when I read this verse, for example, since my Creator is inviting me to look at the signs of his mercy, and then concludes with saying, because he is powerful over all things, I mean, the way now the verse is structured, so I would also ask the question, are you really powerful over all things to my Creator? Because he says, I can resurrect the dead because I am powerful over all things. He's providing me an explanation. So that it must mean that I can confirm this.
So that's a good point, because like I should correct myself. I said this is the approach of the author, but actually it is the approach of Quran. This is the Quranic way. So I know in most of the religious circles, we take it in the inverse direction, as if Quranic way is to accept from the beginning blindly that God does this, that, this way, that way. Oh, don't you see in Quran he says he's Rahman, so I have to memorize this. This is the usual way they teach us. But actually, if you study Quran, you will realize this is not the Quranic way. Quranic way is the studying the creation, your life, what you see around, and then come to conclusion about your Creator. This is the Quranic. The verse that you just read, which author is studying as part of this 10th word, is the great example. He doesn't say, let me see. He doesn't say, for instance, look to the Quran's verses. There you will see that there's hereafter. This is not the Quranic way. Quran says, look at the signs of your signs of God's mercy in the creation. This is what Quran says. It always starts from creation.
And I mean, that makes sense because speech is God's speech, creation is God's speech. So it's not like creation is somebody else's and then Creator says, oh yeah, this confers me. It's more like here is the user manual. Here is the thing that I made. This user manual is for your guidance to make use of that machine that I made. So in the user manual, he says, yeah, I did a masterpiece, but I'm not only claiming that it's a masterpiece. Look, I'm going to show it to you. When you click on this button, it starts working like this. Go and see it, try for yourself. This is what it says in the user manual. And you cannot simply say, oh, yes, it's the user manual says so, it must be so, and you're not even touching the thing or you're not using it. So you go and touch it, it really works, and you say, oh, yeah, the maker of the machine told me, and I now confirm truly that it is really working. So the speech must be his speech, and whoever is the owner of that speech, machine is made by him. So both ways, it's a confirmation both ways. And you're not bearing witness to this. You're so secure about it. If I come and say, no, you know what, this user manual is fabricated by somebody else, you will say, well, 100% it's matching with this. Or if I say, well, this machine is made of chance and whatever, I say, well, somebody has written this user manual. The one knows everything about this. So there must be the maker. So there's this one-to-one match. And that machine we are talking about is our life, or the world we live in. So this is how Quran is inviting us for that. So in this regard, when it comes to resurrection, though, let's say for the existence of proving the existence of Creator, we can talk about that. But when it comes to resurrection, how do you prove that? Nobody who died came back. So, like, how can you bear witness to that? Like if I see that, if I blame Atik saying that he stole this tea from such and such shop, and I didn't see him stealing it, but he brought it here. Who knows? Maybe he did, right? If I say I bear witness that he stole it, although I haven't seen it, what would I be? The biggest of the liars, right? You haven't seen anything. You don't have any evidence. Let's say even if I haven't seen it visually, but let's say, oh, I took note of the genetic test and whatever and everything. This tea belongs to that Manakish, and I was
tea pot maybe has some inscriptions on it saying that Manakish or
yeah. And then I'm looking for the transactions in his credit card and everything. He didn't pay a single penny. Like in a way, these would be ways to witness it. It does not necessarily need to be an eyewitness. But if I don't have any of these witnesses and just heard somewhat of a gossip, and then I say I bear witness he stole it, I mean, it's not going to be good in the first place. But then if she comes and says, no, he didn't steal it actually, it was stolen, but it was not Atik actually, it was Red who stole it, I would be super shaky. I would say, well, maybe it was Red. Yeah. So this is what's happening with our belief. Like if I'm not secure, I am being shaky. Some scientist comes and says, no, it was not like this. Actually, it was like that. Then this shaky belief just goes from one end to the other. So the idea is the resurrection. Where am I? How do I bear witness to resurrection? So this is what the author is trying to do.
So it's interesting, right? Like how do you talk about hereafter, resurrection, by talking about how your life is? Because our usual understanding of the hereafter is that it will come when we die, right? The resurrection. So how do you talk about it then, within the moment, other than just saying that Quran says there will be hereafter, so there must be hereafter? I mean, it's this kind of belief, right? You say, I didn't see anything in Quran which was not right, so everything I read so far was right. And then he talks about the hereafter as well, so I assume it is right. This is one way of believing something. It is, I guess, reasonable. But can we go beyond that? Can we say that, oh yes, whatever Quran says about the hereafter actually fits to what I used to experience or what I've been experiencing? Can we say that? And I guess the way Quran talks already gives the clue for that. Look then to the signs of God's mercy, how he restores life to the earth after its death. Oh, Quran gives me an example of resurrection. Quran says, look at the springtime. Right before the springtime, the earth was dead, and then it's alive again. I said, okay, yeah, there is a glimpse of the resurrection there. I can now make sense. So at least I say, my life does not reject what Quran says. It's even confirms. This is the way authors studies, right? All these 7 aspects we studied so far. I'm not including the 8, it was different. But the first 7 aspects, it was all about, look around, what do you see? You see things being renewed all the time. It's a glimpse of resurrection. You see everything being preserved. Nothing in the universe is destroyed entirely. Everything is preserved one way or another. You cannot find anything in your life which is not recorded one way or another. It is always preserved, recorded. And then, comes this sense, a human sense that what is being recorded as if, I will be, how do you say, accountable? Taken accountable? Held. Yes. It is as if I will be held accountable. Right? Somebody is recording everything about me. Another glimpse, another evidence, another light of hereafter coming to us, right? So I don't see maybe what happens after my death, but in my life, I see its examples, tiny examples. That was the approach in first 7 aspects. And then in the 8th aspect, author says, okay, let's look at the Quran as well. Let's look at the scripture as well. There you will see the same thing is being said. So there's a 5th match between your life and the scripture. Another evidence for hereafter, right? So now in the 9th aspect, I guess you will talk about, and if we make the analogy with the reality, prophets, or let's say the saints, all these the people who are went further than the others in the science, not science, but sciences, like chemistry, the sciences of religion. Let's hear from them as well, what they say about hereafter, and then all these things come together. Will tell us about the hereafter. That's the way I understand. Any comments you would like to add? No? Then 9th aspect. Come now, look at the heads of these offices and groups. There's a footnote. The meanings indicated in this aspect can be found in the 8th truth. 8th truth will come in the 2nd part. For example, by heads of offices, we mean the prophets and the saints. As for the telephone, which will come in the example, it is a link and relation with God that goes from the heart and is the mirror of revelation and the receptacle of inspiration. The heart is like the earpiece of the telephone. So ninth aspect again, come now, look at the heads of these offices and groups. Each has a private telephone to speak personally with the king. Sometimes too, they go directly to his presence. See what they say and unanimously report.
that the monarch has prepared a most magnificent and awesome place for reward and punishment. His promises are emphatic and his threats are most stern. His pride, referring to the king here, to the creator, his pride and dignity are such that he would in no way stoop to the abjectness inherent in the breaking of a promise. The bearers of this report, who are so numerous as to be universally accepted, further report with the strong unanimity of consensus that the seat and headquarters of the lofty monarchy, some of whose traces are visible here, is in another realm far distant from here. The buildings existing in this testing ground are but temporary, and will later be exchanged for eternal palaces. These places will change. For this magnificent and unfading monarchy, the splendor of which is apparent from its works, can in no way be founded or based on so transient, impermanent, unstable, insignificant, changing, defective, and imperfect matters. It is based rather on matters worthy of it, eternal, stable, permanent, and glorious. There is then another realm, and of a certainty we shall go towards it.
Here's the footnote that you can see that.
I think it's a footnote for the 10th aspect. So now in the 9th aspect, he is taking messengers and saints, and he talks about a telephone. What do you think about this? So how is it that, let me ask it this way, messengers become a proof for resurrection? And like in this metaphoric explanation that he put here. How is it that the words of those people is going to be a evidence for me? These are people's words.
You even include saints, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously just people. Like with the prophet, we have a kind of like a different category, especially if you are a certain culture. Like if you call yourself as a Muslim, and you would say, yeah, whatever prophet says is true already. It's kind of, not hard to take the prophet as an evidence. But when it comes to saints, Evliya, or I don't know, how do you call them? Certain cultures they don't even accept such people, right? Even if you call that yourself as Muslim. So how should we understand then, the author saying that there are certain people he calls as saints, and don't you see that they are close to this monarch? And what they say is that everything you see is temporary, it will change, it will be destroyed, it will renew, and there will be a temporary, the permanent, a new realm. And because they say so, you can take it as another evidence.
Daniel, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, what I take away from this 9th aspect is that several things about, because it seems like, oh, well, you're asking me to trust some other people. Like first looking at the claim that there is something as resurrection and there's a hereafter, is a big claim. I mean, that is I honestly, I don't think there can be a bigger claim than that. I mean, you could argue maybe the necessity of a necessary being is the biggest claim, though I would maybe argue resurrection, beyond this world is probably the biggest claim, because while you can say, to some extent, every moment is a resurrection, and my being is a resurrection from moment to moment, and the seasons are a resurrection, and like anything else we, generally talk about, or my thoughts are a resurrection. Every moment I have a new thought, a new idea, or a new feeling. Those are being resurrected. Still, the idea that someone dies and lives on, as in specifically in the sense that you lose your bodily clothing, and you don't happen, and no one can access you in this world. No one can actually say they've, in a way, live to tell about it, because, once you die, physically speaking, of that, your body dies permanently. That's it. No one can access you in this physical realm. So for so many people, prophets, saints, anyone, to conspire for such a claim is, I mean, that would be arguably maybe one of the biggest lies ever perpetuated on man, for as long as man has been around on this world. And they all unanimously claim the same thing. So either if I say there is no such thing, either I'm wrong, and note, I don't have any evidence to support my claim. Like if I'm a materialist, if I'm an atheist, I don't have any evidence to support my claim that there is the non-existence or absence of resurrection. And maybe they would contend, oh, you can't prove non-existence. Well, that's the entirety of the point. Now, it isn't real. There's no such thing as non-existence. But just the mere fact that I cannot say that there is no resurrection, because nothing even hints to that in this world. Like there's no evidence to even suggest my position. To say I'm right, even though I have no evidence to suggest it, not even one atom's worth of a shred of evidence or support to substantiate that sort of baseless claim. For me to say I'm right and then all these other people are wrong, that's a pretty big major claim to make. And to me, it's sort of my own arrogance or ego saying that I'm right, and not just one person, but a collective group of people are all wrong, and the people who follow those people are all wrong. That is quite big. And the thing is, the interesting thing is, though, like not even like scientists will do the same thing. For example, something as obvious as climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it, people who deny it, these scientists claim, oh, well, how can people deny climate change? It's so obvious. 99.99% of scientists agree to it. How can you deny it? It's so obvious, even though if you're not a scientist or researcher. I mean, every evidence points to it. Every moment points to it. Every weather change points to it, or climate catastrophe points to it. Whether you are aware of it or not, but you experience, everybody else experiences, even if they're not a scientist. Even in their own sort of profession, they wouldn't even accept it. But when it comes to this, it's because generally speaking, people think they know more than they actually do, or their ego gets the better of them and they blinded from the truth. Because people generally have like for example, let's say like this climate change, like people have an agenda. They have they don't want to accept that man, like as the verse in the Quran says, has caused corruption on the land and the sea, because then it becomes personal. Then it's like I have to take my own self into account. Am I saying is my position actually valid? Is it true? Like, can everybody else be wrong? Yes, to me, transmission or sort of unanimous report or mutawatir. So, I don't know if he uses that word here in the text, is legitimate to me, because everybody does it. You don't have to believe in anything. You can be a materialist philosopher and you accept it. It's just, it's a form of evidence. And they wouldn't even deny it in their own profession. So, as long as the evidence supports it, and the fact that something is a unanimous consensus, tells me that there is one shred of evidence, at minimum one atom's weight of evidence. And if there's only one piece of proof to it, that's sufficient in the matters of belief, because one sign, so to speak, is enough light to sort of scatter darkness. So that's what I would say about this ninth aspect.
Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khairan. And there was this mentioning of telephone, and he says it's a connection from heart to the creator, because he uses this heart as a connection between God. It's a relation with God that goes from the heart and is the mirror of revelation and the receptacle of inspiration. So then actually in here there are two proofs he's talking about. One is revelation, the prophets receiving the revelation. The other one is inspiration, that's like saints take, but everybody takes revelation according to their level. Prophethood is more like a discrete thing. If you take revelation, then you're a messenger. But when it comes to being a saint, in a sense, everybody could have a share of their sainthood to whatever degree they are. So that means that sort of proof is much more closer and accessible to all of us. So in this regard, I guess, what could it be in our first-hand experience that I am inspired to say that such a thing must exist is one. And the other one is
so you are asking, like, do I have a telephone which is connected to my creator, right?
Mm-hmm. Because there are things like, for instance, when I say Maryam likes Ali, how do I know that? Because like we ask a question a different way. Do octopus feel pain? Right? This is a common question that is there. Does she like Ali? How do I know that, right?
Sometimes she looks very angry.
So there are things which are beyond description, yet I am sure that she loves Ali. So there are different aspects of, I think, this inspiration. There are things for which you have a very strong feeling about things. From within, it is the case. So, yeah, you will say something? No? Okay. So, in this regard, if I check myself and say, let's say I put a lot of investment to this life, but then I am seeing that much more investment is being put into my life, much more than I put here. And then it comes to an abrupt end. Then just saying that it was that all, it shouldn't be ending like that. Like, what was the point of all this whole thing if it's going to come to an abrupt end like this? It cannot finish like this. And also, there was a point that the author mentions that these prophets are making. They said such a palace cannot be based on this transitory things. Actually, this is what we are saying when life comes to an abrupt end. We said that
I mean, what does it mean to say that it cannot finish like this? Because we have, like deep inside, we have this feeling that a huge investment is made and now it's going into waste. I'm going to be dumped into a hole and I will rot there. Like you did all those studies, all those degrees and whatever, all those memories, nice moments, everything is being dumped into this pit. Doesn't make any sense. So when the messenger says, no, this, because messengers are making these arguments. Messengers do not simply say, we have seen it, we have a very solid conviction, so you should believe in us. This is not what it is, because the way he said it, messengers are coming up with this relatable examples for us, with which I say, oh yeah, this person knows what he's talking about. And when he says this, the monarch behind this palace cannot be standing on this temporary thing because it comes to an end, then everything becomes nonsensical, and then it doesn't match. I don't know if they gave the example, but he was, at some point, he was talking about the example of a, let's say, a movie is being recorded, and you see that budget for that movie, which is just a 2-hour movie, is multi-million dollars, $1 billion. Is it billion or million? Generally $1 million, right?
What is it for?
For movies.
Oh,
Let's say $300
million.
billion, right? So they make this much investment for 2 hours movie. And if you take the movie to be as it is, movie is recorded, everything is finished, and they say, okay, now go away, it's done. Like, why did we make this much investment for 2 hours of movie if this movie is not going to be shown to other people? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's because they used every computer graphics, and then the I don't know, the cables were there, special effects, all sorts of explosions and everything. You recorded it, and now you're dumping it under the earth. Like you dig a hole, you just imagine it's the old days, this tape. You dig, bury the tape under the earth and let it rot in there. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, you would say there's a super imbalance in there, because the movie from beginning to end was very wisely, with very riches were put in there. Wasting it for no good is just, it cannot be. So this sort of a message is being delivered by huge quantities of people. Because when I say large numbers of people, the exact other opposite thing that comes to mind is there are even larger numbers of people who deny it. That is what Suhail was saying. Denial doesn't add up. Like if I say there's no light in this room, and 1 million people tells that there's no light in this room, and then just Atik and Red comes and says there is light in this room, and here's the picture, I took the picture of it, or there's light in this room because of this and that. Just gives me like 2 people bearing witness to it with a proof for them. Even 1 trillion people says there's no light in this room, it's not adding up. So that's why I think those reliable people coming up with a proof, their proofs add up. But as for denial, it doesn't add up. So large numbers in this sense is contributing to strength of my faith along with their proofs. But billions of atheists denying it doesn't shake my faith even a little, because denial doesn't add up. Like kufr, covering up doesn't get up. We cover up, there's no light.
This is not because you are a religious person. This is like a rule of logic. Right? So for something to add up, it must be an existing thing. So if you have a piece of salt, you have a piece of salt, you have another piece of salt. When you put them together, you have a bigger amount of salt. It adds up, right? But if you don't have anything, you don't have anything, you don't have, I don't have anything. When we come together, this, and it's like a non-existence does not become a bigger non-existence. It does not add up. So denial when I say, for instance, I don't think there is God, and you say, oh, I don't think there is God. You say, I don't think there is God. So we coming together, it doesn't make any stronger, because none of us has any like evidence or anything to put them together. So non-existence does not sum up. If you say, I have an evidence for the non-existence of God, and then you say, I have an evidence for the non-existence of God, I say, I have an evidence for non-existence of God, then they would sum up. But the denial is not in that form. So people never comes with an evidence of non-existence of something. They say, no, there is no God. And I will, assume there is no God, and then try to explain things as if there is no God. Even a billion people or even a billion people, approach the subject in this way. It doesn't matter if it is 1 billion, 2 billion, or 1 person. It doesn't sum up, because there's nothing to put together and make it bigger. You can only put the things together when they exist. So, for instance, if one person comes and say that there must be God, because I have such an evidence, even if it's a tiny evidence. Okay? Just don't you see that there's such thing in life? It somehow indicates that there's a God. Very tiny, the indication. If 1 billion people comes with different types of indications, or if you have, as a person, you have hundreds of such indications, when you put them together, it becomes a bigger evidence. They sum up. This is not only for the existence of God, it's existence of anything. If you want to prove something, if you put tiny evidences together, they sum up. But if you add up denials together, which is based on, oh no, I don't think, they don't sum up. It doesn't mean anything. Whether you have 1 person or 100 people, doesn't matter at all. So when he says denial does not sum up, it's not because he's religious, he's being biased toward, the belief versus denial. It's the rule of logic. May I say something
Yes.
about I don't know, so I can, speak loud.
We will give a break after.
Oh, yes. So when we talk about the saints, or maybe in a modern language, the scholars, so we usually take them so lightly. Meaning, when we talk about a person who is very close to God, we assume someone who doesn't know anything, who doesn't know much about, the life or sciences. He's just so pious, he's so humble, and that's the reason he's close to God. And these kind of people we usually take as saints. But when it comes to other type of, the people, especially the ones on the side of denial, we see that, the people that we usually consider as like the professors, philosophers, the famous people,
Elon Musk.
like Kermit, do you know Kermit? The Muppet Show, Kermit, yeah. So we take them so serious, like they are very educated, the educated people, intelligent people, and so on and so forth. When it comes to scholars, they just memorize Quran. They know fiqh. They know about hadith, like they know the life of the Prophet. They memorize some rules about the religion. We think it that way usually. So when one person comes and say that, well, don't you see all these scholars tell the same thing? We usually don't take it as an evidence. But in reality, when we look at the scholars, I'm not talking about the famous YouTubers like Chef X or Chef Y. I'm talking about, the scholars accepted by, most of the Muslims who publish things, who shape the understanding of the people, right? So, for example, Imam Ghazali, Imam Rabbani, Abu Hanifa, or Imam Shafi, all these people, you can name hundreds. When you read their works, or when you look to study their sayings, for instance, you realize that they are the most serious people you can find. This famous scientist or philosopher is like a child game compared to them. And it's not only about, the rules of the Islam or anything, but whatever they say about life or about human being or an animal, for instance, you see that the seriousness there, the depth of knowledge. Sometimes, sometimes when I read or hear or whatever they study, these people work and now compare it with this famous so-called atheist. It's like comparing the works of the Mozart or Beethoven, the famous musicians, versus Red playing his piano. It's that difference, really. Like the famous people say something about the human or our life. If you are approaching it with a peace of mind, it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't care how many publications he has in, let's say, the theoretical physics, or how many books he wrote about the sociology. Even people who are studying human, the psychologists, right? When you hear what they say about, their, let's say, own life, or their children, or the other people, you think like, all this education and everything was just waste. What are you saying? Like, it doesn't make sense. How were you able to publish all this, the papers? But when you read or when you study the scholars, and when they say something about a human being, regardless of the century that they live, they make sense. I can make the connection with my life and what they say. So when we talk about the scholars, these are like a serious people. Just because we don't study them much, we don't know as much as we know these famous atheists. It doesn't mean they are just regular people. You cannot even compare them. It's like, seriously, it's like a anyway, whatever about the comparisons, but yeah, you cannot really compare them. So when scholars, these people, say something, you take it seriously. You say, that must be something they know.
Jazakallah khair. So let's give a break here. Inshallah, 10 minutes Maghrib break, and inshallah we will be back at 8:04 inshallah, or 8:05.
Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Inshallah, we will continue. So we have like a 20 minutes before we end the discussion. And the last thing we were studying about the saints, the scholars, and then the telephone that the author is referring to. And you really don't mind, I'd like to say something, like one more thing about the scholars. So we also have this, I think, the tendency, or this is how we were taught from the primary school, even by our religious parents or culture, that the religion is a personal thing, and it's about your, just mere blind beliefs. And when this is the case, we take it the equivalent that somebody, for instance, who studies about the signs of the Creator, right? He spends or she spends her life studying that. What she says about the Creator is equivalent or equal to what yet another person who, doesn't even think about the Creator more than an hour in his or her entire life, and spend all her life, let's say, studying plants. Doesn't matter like what it is. We take them the same. He says, I don't believe in God. And the scholar who studies signs of the God or the Creator her entire life, she says, no, there is God, and I believe in God. We take them same. We say, okay, she believes in God, he doesn't believe in God. And because it's just mere belief, we say, they're same. But this is another, I guess, the injustice that we, even Muslims, do. Like, think about this scholar that we are studying now, Imam Nursi. He wrote how many hundreds of pages just for a very specific topic of how your life points to the existence of hereafter. That's the very specific narrow topic, and he spends I don't know how many years, and then wrote all these hundreds of pages. He says something about hereafter. We take it same as a famous professor or anyone on the street says about hereafter. They say, I don't believe hereafter. And Imam Nursi says, no, there is hereafter. We say, okay, he believes, he doesn't believe, as if it's like a comparable. We wouldn't do the same thing, for instance, when it comes to, let's say, music. Somebody spends her entire life studying the science of music, and then Yusuf, on the other hand, he spent only 2 years, let's say, to be able to get a noise from an instrument, right? As a just example. He says something about the music. He says, I don't understand this type of music. And another the expert, he says, oh yeah, that type of music that you are referring, it has all these details, all these the intricate, the subtle, the differences between these and that and so on. We say, oh, okay, she doesn't like it, or she likes it, he does not like it, as if it's the same. Right? So we wouldn't do that, for instance, when it comes to music or when it comes to any science. I say, it doesn't make sense, the black holes. And then somebody who spent his life studying black holes says something, nobody would take me serious. I guess it's the same thing when it comes to religion as well. So you're talking about the hereafter, you're talking about the God, Have you even spent a day in your life thinking about it? Forget about, the writing things or, studying things. Just thinking about it. Have you spent even a day in your life? So how dare you talk about it? So I guess that's why it is important, very important, talking about saints and scholars. We have to talk about them a lot. Oh no, sorry. I thought that was a hand.
Jazakallah khair. So I'm looking for this part of the room.
I can attempt to make a big metaphor. So when you're talking about resurrection, I was thinking of, examples of life and stuff like that. And I think that what I was thinking of proof is the existence of feelings. They are, evoked, given life within us, and at some point they die, and we lose them until they are brought back to life again later. So understanding that through the ninth aspect, it would seem, maybe feeling itself is its own official within our body. And they have a direct line with the king who gives instruction, okay, here, you go do this or you go do that. And it's less of us trying to manifest, oh, I want to, live a happy life and seek happiness and let me pursue it. That doesn't necessarily mean you will always be happy, right? Even through your pursuit. It's not your own decision. It's not up to you to, no matter how long you bang on the door, you might not be let in through force. And this reflects, some sort of system of reward and punishment. You can, in the sense that we are rewarded with maybe positive emotions, happiness, joy, hope. We are punished maybe with guilt, despair, that type of thing. And these, these point to the proof that the creator will not break a promise, because these are consistent. We can consistently see maybe helping other people leads to a reward of a good feeling, or hurting other people or hurting oneself may lead to a negative, feeling or punishment. And maybe the existence of feelings themselves, they are so solid, we can all agree that they exist. They are buildings, right? They are buildings. We know them also to be temporary, and if we, this part is a little shaky in the metaphor, but if we believe in a generous king or a true absolute king, we will know that he will not give us a temporary happiness, maybe. And if we believe in a just king, he will not give a temporary punishment. Depending on the individual, they will get something eternally good or eternally harmful.
And I guess your belief about such a powerful, wise king is because of what you observe, what you experience. Like if I see that there's this, let's say, Sister Aisha is making this with this very thin hair-like brushes, she paints those embellishments around this text, right? So imagine there's a giant wall painted with these tiny hair-like brushes, which would take maybe years to make it. Right after, so when you see that, oh, it's so magnificently made and whatnot, then would you expect her to take a a bucket of paint and just pour to it? You would say, well, she was wise. She was super tiny, minute details were painstakingly painted so far, all of which tells something about her qualities. And now taking a bucket of paint and throwing it to that wall, either she was not wise in the first place, but like the painting is there. It is full of wisdom and everything. then there must be something wise in this seemingly unwise thing as well. This is how you would say, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that you imagine her to be wise, imagine her to be like, I don't know, detail oriented. No, this is something you observe, not by observing her, but observing her art. You say that she's so wise, she's so detail oriented and everything. And then seeing something which is just totally going against that should make me think, oh, what does that mean then? In the light of all those aspects of her that I realized, what does this mean? And it should take me to think when, even in the example here, for this magnificent and unfading monarchy, the splendor of which is apparent from its works. So the monarchy is unfading monarchy. It's so great. How do you know? How do you know that the king is so great? Look at how he is ruling the existence. Actually, today I was thinking about if, for example, I were to come here with in my pockets 10 gadgets, and those gadgets are like iPhone, I don't know, 100, and they have all different sorts of sensors on it, 20 cameras, like 200 microphones, or imagine just the craziest iPhone that you can imagine with this many sensors on it, because they just keep increasing those sensors, right? And I give it to you saying that, well, I find it on the street, or just take it, and it's just for free, random. And if you keep seeing me doing this at Penn, I go to Drexel, I do the same, what you would say, is this guy a government-funded agent? He's distributing all those sensor-filled gadgets. If I carry it on me, government is going to know everything about me. What's the point of that, right? It cannot be mere chance he finds all this many sensors on the street and he's just delivering it out of goodwill. You will say, what is going on in here? So many sensors, right? How many sensors do you have? Like, our surface of our body is surrounded with touch sensors, heat sensors, everything, like billions of sensors on you. Then there are those eyes, taste sensors, hearing sensors, like from tip to toe, and internally a lot of feelings which are invisible senses, right? You feel like, oh, mother loves the baby. It's another type of sense. So many sensors I am equipped with. And I say, well, it's random chance as a result of random billions of years of chance or something like that. Would you buy that? You wouldn't buy that if I was the guy who's distributing just iPhone 100. I mean, forget about distributing human level of sensors. We are distributed those sensors. Then I need to ask the question, this cannot be random. No way. I mean, I need to go nuts to accept that it's random or by chance. The proper question I should ask is, where is these sensors are coming from? And they are being maintained, like iPhone 100, if you take it, after 4 years, it's going to be an unusable phone. You keep using this sensor machine for 70, 80 years, right? Why is this given? Why am I sensing all these? Because they are being recorded. We talked about this before. What is the purpose of that? Who is the giver? What is his purpose? Would he make this many sensors to be buried under the earth to get rotten? These are super simple questions to ask. And actually, all the way Quran speaks is to make us question as such, actually. If we read the first verse, I'll just read it, the first verse. Look then to the signs of God's mercy, how he restores life to the earth after its death. Verily, he it is who resurrects the dead. First part we see, right? Life is being restored after death on earth. We observe this. But we take it for, oh, it happens by chance, or it happens by it's natural, this and that. Actually, by showing this, Quran says, really? Do you really think that those sensors are being distributed randomly? You wouldn't buy that. Even like we would like to unplug or like all those, what is it, Alexa or our phones and this and that. Because we think that it's, I mean, actually, I bought an Alexa for $1 from promotion.
You're paying to get spied on.
Yeah, exactly. So this, we know that it's like for $1 they wouldn't sell this machine. They should have much of a return from me than just $1, right? I mean, of course, am I paying attention to it? Not attention to it is another story. But any sane person would know that much more is going on there, right? How about this one? And we do not pay that much attention. We say that, no, it's just random. It's by chance. And once I die, I'll be done for good. So this, by attracting our attention to resurrection on earth, then the Creator says, it is He who resurrects the dead. You do observe this resurrection, but Quran is attracting my attention to who is the doer here. Otherwise, I'm getting lost. It is something that I observe, but I don't name it as resurrection. That's why it's very beautiful. Rasulullah was, والسلام, so conscious when he was going to bed and also waking up. His supplication for sleeping and waking up from sleep was about, he was observing that this is a resurrection. He was glorifying the Creator for Him resurrecting us from death, which is sleep. Do I see sleep as death? And I take it natural to wake up, as if my conscience or consciousness was there, and then I just woke up and take it from there. Or is it taken away from me and now given back to me? These are the things that I should ask. And that's why prophets are questioning this and telling us how to make use of that information. That's why prophets' supplications are lessons of Tawheed as well. It's apparently on the surface, it's just a dua. It's just a supplication. But if you look at what he is uttering in his supplication, it's just a offering thanks to the Creator, but it's a perfect appreciation of oneness of the Creator as the resurrector.
That's the reason I would take such a prophet more serious than I would take someone who studies sleep as a biological action and doesn't even have like one word of saying what sleep means. What does it mean for us? But with prophet, he has an understanding. It's obvious that he spent some time thinking about sleep as a human being. Oh yeah, I sleep and then I wake up. I die. I
am given life back.
Given life back. He has such an understanding. And for others who denies the Creator, the resurrection, and so on, no matter how much information she or he gives me about the sleep cycle, my brain, my body, and so on and so on, she doesn't even have one word on what sleep means to a human being.
It's not passing the skin. What is being said without the way Prophet talks about it or the prophets talk about it, it's not passing the skin. And as we were talking this Tuesday, so the word Bashar was used as skin in there. So Bashar means human, but also skin. So in there, the explanations given is not really penetrating into me. It's just staying on the surface so much. But even the smallest supplication, word, behavior of the prophets in this sense is so much conscious of my duties in here. So in this regard, yes, they are not just anyone. Plus, what they say are so conscious from beginning to end. This is why attention should be paid. And what they say unanimously is that there would be a resurrection. There must be a resurrection, actually. Because there would be and there must be are two different things. There must be is based on what I experienced, there has to be something like that. Otherwise, it cannot be. Like this mother must be loving that baby, otherwise she wouldn't be sacrificing her sleeps, is this sort of a conclusion.
So you don't love him that much?
I mean, I'm also sacrificing. So it is 8:29. Any comments? Questions? سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله